Hello. This video will be a step-by-step guide on how to develop your opening repertoire. This video will contain tools and information for anyone from just starting out in chess all the way to having several thousand games in experience. The first stage we gotta discuss is just knowing the fundamentals of the opening in general. That way, if you're ever encountering an opening that you don't know, you know the fundamentals that you can stick to and generally find decent moves. So what are the fundamentals we gotta know? Well, the first fundamental is, of course, we want to take free pieces when offered, and we don't want to lose free pieces. The second fundamental is to try and control the center, ideally with pawns. Why do we want to control the center? Well, a very clear example of that is looking at the pieces on the center have way more control of squares than a piece that's on the edge or the corner. In this case, a knight that's in the center is literally 4 times more powerful than a knight that's in the corner of the board. The next fundamental we want to know is that we want to try and develop pieces quickly. If I look at another extreme example here, white has focused on developing all of their pieces quickly, while black just wasted a bunch of time pushing pawns around. In this position, white has a lot of opportunities to attack because all of their pieces are already in the game and ready to start making plans to attack, while black really has no plans to think of at all. If I open the analysis, we can see that the engine believes that it's +3 in favor of white. In other words, white's advantage is so strong that they're essentially up a piece in terms of how good their position is. The last fundamentals to know are that you want to castle early in order to get your king to safety. And a goal in the early game is to try and connect your rooks, which in other words is a position where your rooks are able to see each other because it's a sign that you've developed all of your pieces and that you've castled. So, if anything, just try and remember that your goal in the opening is to connect your rooks as early as you can, while not losing material. Once you've learned the fundamentals of the opening, and you've played at least 10 to 20 games of chess at least while trying to apply those fundamentals, it's time to start learning your first openings. What opening should you try and start learning? Well, the tool I'm going to first show you is the Lichess Openings Explorer, which I'm going to link in the description. If you go to the Explorer and click on this little book icon, we're going to be able to open the different databases. If you click on the center one, which is the Lichess database, and then click this little cog, what we can select is a specific range of ratings, as well as which specific time controls we want to look at specific game data for. So for this video, for this example, I'm going to pick games up until 1200 in bullet, blitz, and rapid games. The point of this tool is so that we want to know which openings to pick, and what we should pick is we want one opening learned for the most popular response as white, and one opening learned for the most popular response as black. So let's pretend that we play e4 as white. Well, looking at this database, we can see that e5 is played a heavy majority of the time, played at 55% of games. The second most common move is only played 11% of the time. Now we know that for white, the most important opening we need to learn is something against e4, e5. If you want advice as to which openings are worth learning as a beginner, I have a tier list of openings for the white pieces, which you can check out with the title card above. If we're looking at what's the first thing we gotta learn as the black pieces, we can see here that e4 is played 65% of the time. So we know that as the black pieces, the highest priority is we gotta pick a weapon against e4. Once you've learned your first openings with the white and the black pieces, and you've gotten about a couple hundred games in of experience, it's time to start analyzing your own data rather than using the general Lichess database data. The site I have opened up here is called openingtree.com, which I'll have linked in the description as well. What we can do here is we can analyze our own specific player data so that we can better inform ourselves what our specific opponents are playing against us, rather than using the information of general players on Lichess. For this example, I have one of my students' accounts who volunteered me to allow me to use his data for this video. He's rated about 750 on chess.com, and he's making a push for about 800 ELO. So what I can do here is I can open his statistics as the white pieces, and what we can do is analyze his games so we can make informed decisions about what openings he needs to learn and what his opponents are playing against him most often. Okay, I've skipped to where it's finished analyzing his games, and we can see that we have 570 white games loaded. So taking a look at the moves, this specific student plays e4 a majority of the time. And here we see, of course, that e5 is his most popular, the most popular response played against him. We see here that his win rate is at 48.6%. However, before this, a while back, his win rate was at about 43%. And then I taught him how to play the Italian Open correctly, and his win rate shot up all the way to almost 49%, and it's continuing to rise. If you want to learn how to play the Italian Opening, I also have a video on that, and you can click the title card above to learn how to play the Italian. So, we know that he now knows how to properly play the Italian, and his win rate is improving. So we're good there. We see that the second most popular response that he sees is d5, which is known as the Scandinavian. Now I know that he doesn't have a specific weapon prepared against the Scandinavian, but his win rate is pretty high, so I don't think there's any need to teach him anything specific for now. Now third, we have two different openings that he sees most often, both the French with e6 and the Sicilian with c5. I also know that he doesn't have specific weapons for both of these openings, but looking at the win rate, we see that his win rate against the Sicilian with c5 is just a little bit lower than his win rate against the French with e6. So, as his coach, my recommendation is that we give him a specific weapon against the Sicilian, c5, and that way he'll be better prepared against his opponents in the future, and his win rate can continue to climb, and his rating can continue to climb as well. The move I would recommend for him is the Alpine Sicilian with c3, which I also have a video on my channel, if you want to check that out. After he learns the specific opening against the Sicilian, he would then just play a bunch of games out, and we come back to this site, check his stats later, and see if we need to adjust anything later on from there. Building your opening repertoire is a lifelong process, and there's never a point in which you're just completely done learning your openings. And that's it for this video. We covered everything from learning the fundamentals and playing out your first chess games, to learning your first openings, all the way to playing hundreds of games and checking your own stats in order to make informed decisions about what openings you need to learn next. Examples of what informed decisions you can make based off this would be like, if you happen to have a really bad win rate against a certain opening, then you know that you need to learn something against that specific opening, so you know how to check for leaks in the future once you have a few hundred games of experience on your account. If you learned anything from this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, as it helps out a small channel like mine greatly. I post tons of free content and free educational resources on my channel, so if you want to improve your chess game, subscribing is a great way to gain ELO. But other than that, good luck in your future chess games. Have a good rest of your day, and goodbye.